Well, hello everyone, it's Leo here. I felt like talking about the Intellivision Amico, and that's what I'm gonna do. I've kept kind of in the loop about the entire thing, and I've seen. I'm in the Discord. I went back to the Discord for the Intellivision Amico open discussions. It has become a, so to speak, Intellivision Amico hater Discord. It was not the original intention of that Discord, but nobody who's, I don't know how to say that, pro Amico, I don't know. Like, none of the people who still see the project as a positive thing has joined that Discord. That's how I put it, right? And I, again, I still watch that, and so there's a lot of talk still. I mean, maybe mostly it's reminiscing of all the things that were said and done by different people. There's daily multiple posts there, but of course, when something new happens, also people discuss that. We had It's old news. We had that update from Phil Adam, um, and that's where I like talking about it. And I'm I guess I'll preface this because maybe a couple people don't know what an Intellivision Amico is. So I will actually describe as best as I can what the Intellivision Amico is or was. I don't even know whether you should say is, because I think it's dead. But Intellivision Company is still around officially doing things. So I mean, they're publishing games onto the App Store. It's a in that sense, it's a real company, right? It has become a real company. They have a real product. It's just that nobody buys it. It's completely irrelevant, but it exists in some way. Television is um, a dead brand from Mattel from the 70s, from the late 70s. Mattel Electronics, the division of electronics from Mattel, released a video game, and that video game was named Intellivision. But when the video game crash happened, they just sold the Intellivision brand to people who were working for Intellivision, and those people kept the brand alive. They still released more consoles, and they didn't really keep it alive in the sense that they made tons of new games, but they kind of wanted to make something out of that, and I'm not sure how much was published or not published, but it was never super relevant. But the brand was kept alive. Again, they kept making accessories and replacement controllers and consoles things. I'm not sure about the replacement controllers. I'm just saying they kept making hardware for the thing after Mattel had completely abandoned that segment, and they didn't really come back, right? They made the Mattel, what, Hyperscan? That was their other try at something. And after the guy who was in charge of the company died, quite a few years back, I guess. At this point, 2017 was it? 2018? I'm not sure the date. Allegedly, Tommy Tallarico, this guy, bought the company, but I'm not sure what it was him who bought the company or whether many people came together to buy the company. I'm not sure about that. Maybe he did buy it to himself, but then called a team of different people to work with him on this project to revive the Intellivision brand. And so they made a you call that it's not a prototype. It's something that comes before a prototype, right? You make like this demo unit to show people, to attract investors. And apparently the investor that they were targeting, they didn't want the console. They didn't invest the amount that they were hoping for. So they turned to a very weird way of crowdfunding, which is called investment crowdfunding, on a site called Republic, that later joined up and then was bought by Fig, or something merged with Fig. I don't know. That there are complicated things, but that this campaign, this crowdfunding campaign, that's not a traditional one where you don't buy a console, or in crowdfunding you don't buy anything, right? Like you donate your money, but for the promise that you're going to get some kind of reward. This thing that they did is completely different than that. You don't actually buy anything at all. You make some like an investment, so to speak. You buy weird shares, and then whenever a console gets sold, you get a share of the revenue from that. And they raised $11 million to make these consoles, and they had, separate from this raised money, again, completely separate from that, they had pre-orders that I think numbers of pre-orders thrown around were on the 5,000 pre-orders. And this is the part about Intellivision Amico that I can't wrap my mind around, that I don't understand. How can anyone ignore that fact? Intellivision raised $11 million through that crowdfunding investment campaign, and they had 5,000 pre-orders. And with $11 million, they couldn't fulfill the pre-orders. Right? And then people are discussing whether or not like this was a scam or something. And it's like, if you raise $11 million to make a console, and you have pre-orders that are going to pay you for that console on top of the $11 million that you raised. Just think about that. They had $100 from those pre-orders because you had to put money down for the pre-order. But once the pre-order got released, they would get another $200 on top. Something like that. So with all that, you still don't release the console. It just don't. Is it a scam? I mean, I don't know. Like, I don't know what a scam is, right? I mean, to me, that's the kind of discussion, like, well, if you shoot someone and they die, is that murder? It's like, well, technically the person could have survived. So if the person only died, I mean, because, I mean, the doctors couldn't, fix the person well enough. I mean, maybe another doctor could, and then that person would not have died. So that's the kind of discussion that I see happen. It's like, well, that's not a practical discussion. Maybe on a philosophical level, we can sit down and discuss these kinds of things. But from a legal perspective on the day-to-day life, if you shoot someone and that person dies, I mean, it's unless it's self-defense for some reason, that then people will not watching the comments, but I will in a moment. Okay, unless it's something that, again, is self-defense or whatever. I mean, it's not useful or reasonable to be discussing that. It's murder. Right? But the entire arguments of people who are again pro Amico, they are on that level, because again, the hard facts of the thing is that they raised $11 million and no console was released. There are a few people who have like these prototype units or something, pilot. They're not pilot units. Pilot has a different meaning. Pilot is when you're going into production and you make a unit before in the factory production line. The pilot production is the one that you make before hitting the button and making 10,000 units, 100,000 units, 1,000,000 units. Before you do that, you do a pilot run of 200, let's say. And then you take a look, well, from these 200, did all 200 go well? Because maybe 1% didn't go well. Something happened with the soldering or with the putting together of these things. And then the console doesn't work. And then you'll have to put something in place to, at the very least, take those consoles and resolder something or do something like that, or just change the factory process to make so that they do get. I mean, there are different things that you would do, but that's what the pilot production is. And Intellivision never went into pilot, but because they never went into the, like, really having a factory to really produce the console. So with all that said, again, it's a weird conversation to be having of whether this thing is a scam or not a scam, right? Because again, like, you get the money that's more than enough to make the console, $11 million. Atari made the VCS with much less than that. And no, the VCS was not easier to do than the Intellivision Amico. They made custom controllers for the thing. They have the entire online ecosystem. They made games. They released the thing. They sold the thing in stores. If you want to call that a scam or not, whatever, right? Oh, hey people, hey, the rabbit dude and someone, I don't know who that would be. Rabbit dude, your mother has been informed that you hang with PSG. Okay, so that person is gone forever. I don't even know what people are saying about someone's mom, but if you're gonna talk about someone's mom, you're gone. I don't even care what the context of that is. There's no excuse for that kind of garbage. Sorry that it took me so long to even get there, Rabbit Dude. How are you doing, man? I played some. Did you see my video about Monster Hunter DOS? Weird game. Well, okay, so let's keep on the Amico. After all that happened, and I can't give you a rundown of all the things, but the truth is, Intellivision lied multiple times about multiple things about the project, and a lot of people like me were attacked for just speaking their minds about the project, which was also a bad no-no, right? We got at the point where now they are saying that they want to release the controllers for the console so that you can use with Amico home thing that you put on your home device, right? If this company didn't have a history, I would think that's pretty dumb, because those controllers are not very good and they don't really do anything, right? Not with the games that they have. And even if they did something, it's just not worth it at all, because you can use a cell phone. If you need a screen, if you want to have a game where each player has a touch screen and they have information on the screen and they want to do these different things, right? You just use a cell phone. And then you don't need a D-pad, you don't need button, you don't need these things, right? You don't need to have a disc thing and a touch screen. If you need a touch screen, you use the touch screen. Now, if you need a controller with buttons and D-pads or analog sticks and shoulder buttons and whatever, and use the controller. So why would you need this Amico controller? Oh, to show you the color of the shell, and it's like, well, you don't need that. That's not that's not worth $100 for anyone to buy that controller just to be able to see the shell color of the thing in Shark. It's not even like an amazing good game that people would be dying to play. Amazing. I want to play Shark. You know, it's just ridiculous. So, but the company does have a history of promising stuff and not delivering. So now they said that they hope to release these controllers until the end of the year. But all the other times that they wrote something that they said they hope to do something, they didn't do that at all. Right? Like hope, like historically speaking for this company, when they say they hope, well, it's not going to happen. That's all. And so it is crazy to see that some people, they seriously read these updates online and they're like, oh, well, there's this update, and well, I hope we see these controllers soon because the games are great with the controllers. It's like, let's just ignore everything that happened. And that's the weird kind of confusing thing about this entire project, and the way it's done, the conversation online. Like you have this group of people who are willing to just completely ignore basically everything, which takes me to another guy who I was watching a video from him, and I was like, wow, I felt like making a response, because he was talking about these two cults, right? The cult of the haters and the cult of the Intellivision Amico supporters. And that you don't need to be in any of these cults, you could just be moderate, right? And I think his vision of moderation was the following: like, if you're moderate, you will have like a middle of the road opinion on the thing. And what I mean by that is, like, a moderate person would give something not a 10 out of 10, and neither a 1 out of 10 or a 0 out of 10. They would give it a 5 out of 10. That's being moderate, right? Like, if it's moderate, I'm not going to say the Amico is garbage and trash and a scam, but I'm also not going to say it's the best video game ever invented. I'll be somewhere in the middle. But that would mean that moderation would have the same result for any kind of project, right? Like, if you look at something and what you see is something awful, terrible, and you look into things and you see that it's looking like a scam to you, you're going to call it a scam, and that's being moderate, because you're just assessing the information that you have about it. Maybe you could be wrong, but we were not proven wrong about the Intellivision Amico when we said, well, and this is not looking good. It's not looking like these consoles are going to be releasing anytime soon. And it looks like they were lying about these things, and that's terrible, right? Like, and then, yeah, it turned out that all those claims about the company were true. They were lying. They didn't release the consoles. They took $11 million just from one single investment campaign, and they never released the console. Even the games that are released, they weren't used. They weren't made with the money from that investment campaign. They were made with other investments that they got, including the German government. It's a German. Dude, like, the German government gives a lot of money to a lot of different scams. It's a kind of terrible situation over here in that sense. When a government has too much money and too little common sense, and so it's just crazy, right? And I know people want me to go on and start offending people. I mean, but right now, I'm trying to have the following position on YouTube. I'm trying to only say on YouTube things that I would say, like that I would say on the streets, or that I would tell people, in normal conversations, and stay away from stuff that I'd consider too much, you know, to say at work, or to say something like that. You know what I mean? So I'm not gonna do the comedic humor, and it's not like it's wrong to do that. It's just not something I'm at the moment comfortable with doing. And so, because everything has its place, and that kind of humor has its place. But again, I wouldn't be doing that at work, so I won't be doing it here either. I wouldn't be doing that on the street or in a family reunion, so I'm not going to be doing it here either. But it's just this approach, right? This approach, like, okay, so there are cultists. Why were people talking about the cult, right? Again, because there was not everybody who liked the Inellivison Amico was considered an Inellivison Amico cult member by me and some other people. Maybe some other people would just throw that around like that. I don't know that exactly. Maybe some people were like, "Oh, that guy is in the Amico cult," as in, "Oh, he likes the Inellivison Amico, therefore he's in the Amico cult." Maybe some people did that. Yeah, that makes no sense, because liking a scam console doesn't mean you're in a cult. It just means you like a console that was actually a facade for an investment scam. That's not being in a cult. But when we say a cult, when I said cult, which I don't say anymore, I was talking about a bunch of people who would, as soon as you start criticizing and pointing out objective things about the Inellivison Amico, they would start discrediting you. Just a few of them would even start harassing you, but most of them, they would just discredit you and either completely ignore you, and whenever when you would be actually brought up, they would discredit you on the basis that you were a hater, even though what you were saying were objective things that were true. When they knew it was true, their argument would be, well, it's true, but they are only saying that because they want to destroy this product, right? It's like, oh, well, this investment fig thing has a huge problem, that if this company never releases the console, these people will never see a cent back, and there is nothing that tells anyone in the documentation that a console needs to be done. They're free to not do it, and that is an absolutely awful investment to give your money to a company, and then they'll give you money back if they make something, but they don't need to make it. They can just take your money, which is obviously what they did. It's obvious. Why do they have all those offices? Again, it's insane to have these conversations. How does a company have huge offices and a bunch of office furniture and all that kind of stuff, $11 million, and then they can't release a console? Why do they even have those things in the first place? Well, because it's known, it's proven that the guy who, I think they admitted it themselves, the guy who owned the offices, who was getting the money for the rental of the offices, was one of the executives of the company. So he was pocketing the money that was for that. How much exactly was that money? We don't know. Probably a lot, even though he was still using those office spaces as a garage for his used and broken cars. So he was getting rent for places for places in that office that he was still using for his purpose, for his personal purposes. And again, if it was a company that was making millions of dollars, and the executives had freaking personal things in the offices and whatever, who cares, right? But no, it's a company that got $11 million invested in it and didn't give a cent back. But the cults thing specifically, right? Again, you talk about these things, and they would ignore that, and again try to paint you in a way that you were the problem for bringing up all these things, right? All these red flags that were pretty obvious seeing about the project. And it's very interesting. Uh, and you kind of ask yourself, how can that be, right? But that is the thing that is very prevalent in humanity, like in human behavior, is that most people, they don't do due diligence. They don't, period. They don't want to do it. They go out of their way to not do it. What they do is they take someone who they think is an authority. They hear that opinion. They don't even understand the opinion. They don't even know what they heard. They don't know. But they take that official, professional opinion and they run with that because, that's the best they can do. Which, granted, it's not completely unreasonable because that's what I do when I go to the doctor and he says, well, you got this. And it's like, well, how do you know? Like, I don't know how to, they say I have slightly increased um, eye globe pressure. Okay. How do you know that? It's like, well, we measured with the machine. Well, how does this, like the machine just blows a little bit of air into my eye socket. Like it can seriously measure the pressure. Like, I don't know how that works. I don't know what pressure is healthy or not. I don't know why that can damage my optical nerve. I didn't go to books and study that. I believe the doctor, and so I go check the pressure every year because it's not bad, and the optical nerve has no damage. But if the pressure starts getting high, it can start getting damage into the optical nerve, and so at that point, I would need to get medication to lower the pressure. But as long as it's as it is and everything's fine, you see what I mean? Like, it's not completely unreasonable for you to just believe what a technician does. And so people do that. But I think it's also not that reasonable to get someone that's asking you for money or asking you for attention or making a lot of claims and to not verify those claims at all when they are not that hard to verify. It's not that complicated, It's like, oh, well, the investment for the Inellivison Amico is a scam. It's like, well, you can take a look at the investment and see what you think, which is what I did. Most other people didn't, right? And when I saw the investment, I said, wow, but this looks very problematic. I mean, they seem to have other monies and other things, and so they should be releasing the console. But if this was all there was, if this investment is all the money that they got, this console ain't getting released because there's no reason for them to release it. But the problem is, well, actually, the other sources of income that they claimed they had, those were not true. And so since all they had was money from Fig, well, of course, they didn't release the freaking thing because if they released it, they would have to spend all the money they made on the campaign. But if they never released it, they could just keep all the money. All they had to do is pay salaries for themselves, which they did. So this guy's talking about these two cults, right? And he's saying that the people who say that Inellivison is renting offices from one of the executives in the company, that they lied about Phil Adam and that they never released the console, but they pocketed $11 million from investors. Those are a cult on one side. And then the other people who say, well, Inellivison, I mean, it's great because because what? Yeah. It's great because they're gonna bring families back together through shovelware on the outdated Android console with garbage controllers. And so that's totally it's totally the same thing to say that a company that gets $11 million in investment but can even release the console that's bad, and then to say that that company is going to save, you know, save gaming, it's just the same thing, right? Those are two sides of the same coin. These are two extremes of a spectrum of the people who are insane. But then I kept watching the video from this guy who was kind of pushing forward this premise. And the guy was trying to justify that the haters, these hater people, they say that Tommy Tallarico Mansion wasn't an MTV Cribs, but he was saying that there are like spin-off Cribs, um, spin-off Cribs programs things, and that Tommy was on one of those. It's like, so what he meant is something like, well, he wasn't on MTV Cribs, but someone at some point made a video about his house to make for something else that's not MTV, and it's not called Cribs. So yeah, he was on MTV Cribs. It was just not the MTV Cribs. It was some other thing that is not MTV Cribs, but it's kind of the same thing as MTV Cribs. And so that is why Tommy was on MTV Cribs. And I was looking at that and I was kind of like, okay, but maybe this person I'm watching this video from, this person is absolutely insane. I don't know. Am I watching a video made by someone who has some kind of issue, some kind of psychiatric, neurological disorder of some kind? Or maybe it's just that because he's Canadian, and maybe South Park is right and Canadian are actually like very, very, very strange people. I don't know. But then the conversation goes on, the monologue of this person, just like I'm making my monologue. And he says, like, wow, this Tallarico Mansion is being sold for $3 million. That is so cheap. He said, here in Canada, that mansion, I think he said that mansion would cost 50 million Canadian dollars. At that point, I realized that, okay, so this is we're outside of any realm of reality in any way, shape, or form, right? This person just has no problem. Because let's say, even if, I don't know what the rate is, I think it's something like, it's not even 2-to-1, like 2 Canadian dollars buy more than 1 American dollar, I'm pretty sure. It's not 2-to-1. It's not like a Nintendo Switch costs $300 in the US. It's not $600 in Canada. I'm pretty sure it's less than that. It's more. And I think it's gotten worse after COVID. The rate is, if I remember correct, I could be wrong, but let's say it's 5-to-1. Okay, let's say it's 5 Canadian dollars to buy 1 American dollar. That house would still not sell for 50 million Canadian dollars. In Canada, 10 million American dollars. Okay, that's just insane. This person has no problem saying something that this person has no idea what they're saying. Okay, unless, of course, if you have something that is in the most expensive spot in the entire city, if you have a mansion like that downtown, right? Yeah, it costs that because you can tear it down and make a building there, and then you'll make huge amounts of money on the building, or maybe you can just make something very important there, an embassy or something like that, right? And so at that point, maybe you could make a museum. You'd probably still tear it down because the square meter is so much valuable that it's worth just building something. But what is that mansion? Like, it's 2, maybe 3 stories tall. Sure, it has, a lot of bedrooms, but it's not that gigantic. It's not that expensive. It's not that huge. I lived in a house, I think, for a while that might have been basically at the level of that mansion. Just it didn't have a nice garden. Tommy's house has a nice garden. That house where I lived in for a while didn't have that. I didn't see the quadrat the square meters, the square feet, and I don't even know how to translate that. But I mean, I don't think it's that gigantic, and I think I think it's not even worth the $3 million. But maybe property in that gated community is very expensive, and so that's why it's 3 million. I don't think it is, and I don't think it's going to sell for that. I also don't think it's going to sell very fast. Hey, 18 paste, that place is insane for that cheap price. They must have listed it really low since the buyer is going to have to unfuck the house. Okay. Do you think it's worth $10 million though? American dollars, or how much is Canadian? You know how much Canadian is? Control paste, eating paste. Isn't it 2-1, even less? So $50 million, $30 million. I don't know. I doubt it. But I don't know. I don't think that house is that incredible, man. Like the area that he has under the roof there with that one room, it's not that big. I mean, I've seen properties. I mean, you can get some very nice things for €1 million here in Europe, in places that are not very cheap. And usually for something to go above 2 million, 3 million, like it has to be something very special. But yeah, I mean, California is supposed to be very expensive. Well, yeah, but where in California, right? Like it's in a gated community that it's probably not in the, again, it's not downtown. It's not something like that. But okay, maybe it's worth. There's places in the States where that house would be like 300,000, but because it's California, okay, fair enough. Okay. I don't know the gated community, but again, what I'm talking about is this dude saying that if that incredible house was in Canada, that it would cost $50 million, right? Again, if it's downtown in the middle of one big city in Canada, in one really expensive spot, yeah, it would cost 50 million. But if it's just a normal house in Canada at some normal place where normally there would be a house that people buy, no, it wouldn't. It would probably be less, right? It would probably be 3 million Canadian dollars for that house instead of 3 million American, right? It's just like I live like an hour's drive outside of the closest major known city, and any house, no matter how shitty, is 750K. Nah, man, 50 mil is a little high, but you're not understanding the market in Canada. In Canada, is terrible, the market. In Canada, like any crappy house is insanely expensive. Any house 100 miles out of any city is 1 million Canadian to start. Wow, that is so you probably have the same problem that a couple places have. I think Paris has Paris, right? I think France has that problem, but other countries have that, where the entire country is like 3 cities. The 3 biggest cities, they're everything. And if you're out of them, there are no jobs. There's nothing going on. There's nothing. It's shit. Like either you own a farm, or like you're fucked. Like sure, you could work at the supermarket and whatever. right? Like uh, you can work for the town hall, cleaning the roads and something like that, but there's nothing else there. And so if you have any kind of want to have any kind of perspective of having any job, of getting a job, because the entire market is just on these like 3 cities in the entire country, and everything else is just a wasteland. Yeah, I know countries like that. And that's absolutely terrible. It's terrible for the country. It's terrible for the people who live in the country. Like, these countries needed to have projects of decentralizing, because decentralization is awful. It's awful. Like, Germany works really well because Germany has tons of cities with 300,000 people living in them, 500,000, 300,000, 700,000 people living in them. And all of them are completely viable places to live, right? No problem. So nobody needs, like, Berlin is insanely expensive, but nobody needs to live in Berlin, right? Uh, Even a couple other places that are very expensive, like, but you don't need to live there. You don't need to live in Munich, or you don't need to live in these places. You can live anywhere and get all kinds of jobs and all kinds of things. And there's industry and there is education and health system. As an example, in the area I live, let's say 5 major cities away from Vancouver, you're still looking at 1+ million for a house, and that's entry level house. Okay. Well, but that's also a thing that's very important to keep in mind. Okay. If a house, what kind of house is 1 million? How many square meters would that be? Because if you have, usually how it works is the following. Okay. A house that's 200 square meters. Okay. If it costs 1 million, a house that's 400 square meters, it's not going to be 2 million. And one that's 800 square meters, it's not going to be 4 million. It's not, it just does not at all increase like linearly. A house that has 4 times the area of some other house, and it's a much bigger house and a nice house, there is kind of a ceiling, and it's gonna get, so that would be like 7.5 million US dollars. Tommy's house where I live would be a 10 million house, if not a lot more. 7.5 million US dollar. I can get some examples. Well, I'm not at the computer, but you can actually. This is an interesting enough conversation to have, seeing what the market prices are on houses in Canada. Because again, usually when it starts getting higher prices, you get a lot of house for the money that you are paying for. But I actually don't know the Canadian market at the market, and that's very sad, especially now with a very high. I don't think salaries are super high in Canada, and with very high rates right now. How to say that? Loan rates, right? It's basically impossible to buy property then there for normal working people. It's not linear based on the square meter size. Yeah. But you're right. You're right that, well, I don't know in the US, because I'm telling you, man, here in Europe, like $3 million gets you some nice property. It's hard to get something downtown, like really, really in the middle of, because there are no houses there. You'd have to buy an apartment, and that's a completely different thing. But here in Europe, for 3 million euro, you can easily get a house like that. I mean, it has a nice garden, but it's not a gigantic garden, right? And I don't think it's necessarily that close to downtown. So again, if you're a little bit on the outskirts, the prices drop, even though some places specifically not so much, because they're 3 million would get you a really nice place here too. uh, to me, and I've bought a house in the last year, so I've had a lot of experience looking at houses recently. Tommy's house seemed cheap as fuck. I was shocked, blown away. 3 million would get you a really nice place here too. I don't know if you'd be getting that pool, but you could easily get that building for 3 million here. Yeah, the problem with is I think again I've been looking at places too because I was looking into buying something, but in the end I'm gonna rent for a while. But it's like Tommy's house. It's a very nice house, right? It's a big house and it has like a few kind of luxury things, right? But it's not a mansion. Like it's not that impressive. It's not one of those houses, right? Like there are places that you go to that you look and it's like, oh wow, this is like a fucking luxurious freaking mansion, right? That's not Tommy's house. the the bedrooms are just like normal bedrooms. The hall, there is no special hall entry with staircases and things, right? You don't see like stone finishes and things. Like the kitchen it doesn't even look like a great kitchen. It's kind of like it's yeah, it's big. It's much bigger than the one that I have, but I live in a small apartment or a mid-sized apartment, right? But it didn't look like a like when you have a house that's like a luxurious, big, you know, actually high-end house, that's not what you see in it. You know, what that house has is not what you see in an actual gigantic, amazing mansion that's made for actual millionaires, people who like have too much money and they don't know what to do with it, right? People who actually own a Ferrari and a Bugatti and whatever, and still own their Mercedes or their Audi or their Lexus for day-to-day driving, right? Because a Ferrari is not a good car for you to go grocery shopping or whatever, you know. And people who are millionaires to that extent, I don't even know they do grocery shopping. I think there's someone does, their butler does it for them, right? Tommy's not that kind of guy. He has a normal life and lives in a very nice, big, expensive house, but it's still a normal house. Like don't treat him as if he was, I don't know, Tom Cruise or something. It's not who Tommy Tallarico is. Tom Cruise is short, and that the similarities end there. There's nothing else about them, but the interior just looks like a normal house to me. Yeah, I agree. I've visited houses. I visited one house, you know. Yeah, I visited one house where the interior finishes were nicer than Tommy's house. I'm talking about, again, uh, marble and granite, stone here and there, and very nice stuff. Like he just has some normal, normal finishes in the house. I think the wooden floor was probably nice, but it looks like it's ruined. I think people are gonna have to either like file it down and refinish it. I'm not sure. Maybe it was made to look that rustical whatever thing, but I don't think so. I think it's just ruined. I think it was not taken care of and it's in bad shape. What's your opinion on that flooring on that house? To me it looks like it's trashed. Space to it. It's got a really nice space when you drive up, and there is a really nice garden with the pool. Yeah, the garden is nice. It's not gigantic. It's not crazy, but it is nice. And a lot of houses don't have. As I said, I lived in a very nice house for a while, for a few years, when my grandma was living with us. So we got a nice house to live together with her, and it was a really nice house. It didn't look as cool as that house, but it didn't have a garden like that. It had a small garden with a pool. um, and basically the pool took most of the garden, and then around the pool there was a lot of space around. You need space around the pool, right? And I don't mean that you have a pool and then but there's space around the pool for people to put chairs and everything, but there was not like uh, a a place with grass, like, how do you call that, whatever, there was not that. There were just ornamental plants around the place where the swimming pool was, where the pool was, um, and the pool, and then some decks and stuff, and that was it. Like, there was not much more there. And in the front there was a small ornamental garden where you couldn't do anything in there, but the interior just looks like a normal house. Yeah, and an amazing mansion. You have things like wildly high ceilings and huge glass windows. Yeah, you go in, there are these houses, like, you go in, and there's this hall that's just the entrance hall with a huge staircase, and you have like this huge area that's just the entrance hall, right? And then to the left you have the kitchen, to the right you have the space where is the living room and whatever. In the middle it's going to be the dining room that's connected to the kitchen from behind, and then you get up the staircases and you go to the place where you have like this corridor that looks down into the hall, and there up there is going to be the 5 rooms. 4 of there, or 3 of them are suite, and all this kind of stuff, right? You have all this crazy, like, that's the least you expect from a mansion, from an actually filthy rich person, because they can't afford that. They're, like, in my opinion, buying a Ferrari is a stupid thing, whatever you do, right? But a lot of the people who buy Ferraris, like, they make, like, they make 8 figures, right? Like, they make 8 figures yearly. So it's like they buy a Ferrari because they don't know what to do with the freaking money. Like, if they buy a Ferrari, or if they don't buy a Ferrari, they don't miss out on anything. They're not buying anything else because they bought a Ferrari, and they have a garage that has space for 5 cars. And so there's 1 space extra there because the kids already got the car, the wife already got the car, the guy already got his driving car. So he buys a Ferrari. So in the weekend, when he wants to go somewhere, whatever, or he just, I don't know, he doesn't think about it. He buys a Ferrari, whatever, right? Like, it's wannabe idiots who are not filthy rich, and they go and buy a Ferrari to be their driving car. It's like, why would you do that? Right? Because you're a show off. It's stupid. And yeah, that's the way the guy thinks. So he takes a house like that, and as I say, he absolutely ruined that house. And well, it was a mess. Just look at the rooms he was living in, full of dust and stuff, like, just piled up. He just piled up all this crap, right? It was terrible. All the rooms I saw in his place were all standard issue, normal rooms. Yes, I agree. Okay, if that place is a mansion, it only barely qualifies as a mansion. Yeah, it's a nice big house. How many rooms were in that house? Because it's normal to have 4 rooms in a house, right? I was considering buying a house that had 2 rooms en suite. I don't know how to say that in English, but 2 rooms, 2 bedrooms were with a bedroom together, and 2 rooms shared one bathroom. Sorry. So it was 4 sleeping rooms, and then it had an office and a living room, and the living room was together with the dining room, and then a kitchen. And then on the bottom part, you had the garage, and plus another few rooms for different things, right? Like for the laundry, and just one to put the foods, and another kind of office or whatever it was. And so I think Tommy's house is bigger than that. I don't know how many square meters again that house is, but I didn't take a look. But it's not gigantically much bigger I think it's got like max 6. I don't think it has 6 bedrooms. That house, does it? It's probably 4 bedrooms, but it has some extra rooms like a television room and a dining room separate from the living room. Some houses have that. But yeah, the house, I mean, there seems to have been no actual maintenance in that house. It almost doesn't look like, people talked about that a lot. It almost doesn't look like anyone lived in that house. It just looks like there was a bunch of crap thrown around, and that guy lived the entire day in his attic, like typing a crap to haters on on social media all day, and that house was just abandoned. That's what it looks like when you look at the videos and stuff from the from his tours or whatever. And the ones that are ruined by Thomas Stace, yeah, people don't buy Ferraris with their last money. They buy one with their casual spending money. Yeah, you have to be a moron to buy a Ferrari as a regular person, and Tommy is a regular moron. Yeah, hey, Rabbit Dude. It's probably like 4, 6 bedrooms plus a den, I would assume. 2.5, 3 bathrooms. What? Does the description of the house say that it has 3 bathrooms? Because nowadays, even apartments have 3 bathrooms. Like it's a very, like a normal, common, mid-class apartment has one bedroom with a bathroom, a dedicated bathroom for itself for the couple, and then 2 bedrooms for the kids that share a bathroom in the, and then you have the living room with a small bathroom. Okay, you're just guessing. Yeah, that's what what a normal, but just mid-class normal apartment would have. Well, I don't know. I didn't see too many bathrooms in the pictures there. This nice house that I was talking about where I lived in for a while, it had 4 bedrooms, but each one of them had its own bathroom. All of them had its own bathroom, but it was on the top part of the house. And one of them, again, had this gigantic, luxurious bathroom, and then a huge closet, and then the bedroom, and then the other one had an office before the bedroom. So you had a bedroom, and before the bedroom you had the office, and it had a bathroom then. And when you get out of the office, there is like a living room, but it's not the living room, it's just a living room for the bedroom area. It's like the private living room. And then you go downstairs and you have the actual living room that's separated from the dining room, and that was separated from the office. And the kitchen was big enough that we were also having, if you just want to have a family, if it's a smaller family, like if the parents are just cooking and there are 2 kids, you wouldn't even bother with the dining room. You could just sit at the kitchen and have stuff there. But we had maids, so we didn't cook anything. We just sat at the dining room and got stuff taken to us from the kitchen. Yeah. Master bedroom has the ensuite bathroom. Then there's always one main bathroom, and then a lot of the time a small one that's like the 0.5. Yeah, there's a smaller one that doesn't have a shower, because it's just for when people are people are coming over visiting. They don't go into the private area of the apartment to use your private bathrooms. There is just a bathroom there right next to the living room, because that's very nice, because then you don't, right, like you can have a nice, well, not just clean, but well organized, because in your day-to-day bathroom you have like your personal towels and your toothbrushes and all those things just lying around, right? And so if you have visit of someone who's not that intimate with you, it's nice to have a bathroom that they can use comfortably, and it doesn't have any of your personal stuff like your shavers and your things, right? And you don't have to take those things into cupboards and things every single time, or to have to organize your bathroom for a visit. That sucks. Yeah, maybe the bathrooms are run down and as you say, crappy, and they don't and enhance the vision people would have of the house. And so, well, okay. So I learned today that Canada has absolutely terrible market for uh, for houses. Is apartments much cheaper in Canada, or is it just like if you want to buy a place to live, it just sucks? And even apartments are expensive, or it's just houses that are very expensive, generally speaking. Because I've seen places where buying a house and buying an apartment for square meter is almost the same price, right? Like you pay, it's almost the same price. It's the same price basically, or it's almost the same price. You can buy a house, not a house with a big garden, of course, that will raise the price, but just a house that doesn't really have much of a garden, you can buy it for about the same price as an apartment with similar, square meters. Unless you're going downtown, and then the price of the apartments gets much higher. But a house then gets even higher still, because first there are very few houses, and then per square meter, then it starts getting up there. Apartments in rundown, shitty areas are running $500,000. Wow. Dude, that is awful, because that just means people can't afford to buy anything. The salaries are not amazing in Canada, are they? I doubt they are. Like, so people just can't buy anything. Like hardworking people who don't have like a great job, who are not some college professor or a doctor or a successful a lawyer or something, like they're just gonna be like in debt their entire lives if they just have a normal job. Yeah, and they're trying to save and buy something for themselves. That's bad for society. Yeah, that's very bad for society. I've seen a country like that also. Like, I don't want to dox anything of what's going on in my life, but I've seen places where it's like, but you just don't buy a house, just fuck you. It's like, no, you don't. You don't. Like, you're not a rich person. Like, not a rich person, but I mean, if you're not like that upper class echelon of, like, as I was saying, like successful lawyers, doctors, successful, because even it's not even like, oh, I'm a lawyer, I can buy. No, some lawyers get good salaries. Some lawyers can get into six figures, but a lot of lawyers, they don't earn that much, right? Like architects. Oh, I'm an architect, that means I'm rich. No, a lot of people who are architects, they don't make six figures. Like they're struggling to make ends meet. It's not that easy. Um, and so, Link, no, Rabbit dude, I'm not. Sorry, I'm not doing it right now. And if I was going to, well, I could have made a link, but I'm not going to stay long also, because I have to make. I was, as you maybe heard in the beginning of this conversation, I was organizing the kitchen, but now it's organized, and I'll have to start making my Brazilian beans. You either have generational wealth or you're screwed. Yeah, I was a part of the last generation who could reasonably buy a starter home. The only reason why I was able to get and Rabbit Dude, I'm not saying that I won't let you in. I'm just saying nobody's coming in today because I can't be streaming too much more, and I'm not into doing that right now. Unless you have something you want to say, like for a couple minutes, something important, you can tell me, Rabbit Dude. If there's something, like if you want to come in and say something quick, that's fine. But I'm just saying I'm not hanging out right now, especially because I'm not going to stay for much longer. I got into a home very early when I was young and was very lucky I did. Yeah, that's the point where some people uh, get into. I have a friend that's like that. He bought a house, and at the time, I was like, "Wow, he's paying. He's bought. It's not even a house. It was an apartment, right? He bought this apartment, and I was like, at the time, I looked at, you know, and I was like, wow, this guy is spending a lot of money in this apartment. It's not even that great of an apartment. It's not even that great of a spot to be, right? But he got a very low rate, uh, to pay for that house, that apartment, and figures now 4 years, 5 years after, because I'm pretty sure, yeah, he got that pre-COVID. Now it's like, wow, he did an amazing investment. Like, it's like, wow, it's just much. Yeah, you have to pay a lot more now, like 50% more, if not double the price for what he got. And he's still paying for it, but again, he's paying at a low rate, like and uh how is it, how the name of that, interest, at low interest he bought it, and now interest is very high, right? So he's happy, like he can literally put money in the bank, and the interest that he gets from the bank is higher than the interest that he has on his loan for the apartment. It's crazy. It's crazy. Like, dude, I'm not sure it was just COVID, because I think it was not just COVID. I think there's other things, but I'm not an economist at all. But after COVID, slowly but surely, the economy got destroyed, right? It's very bad. I mean, they have like these tools to get things under control, but uh, it's still destroyed. It's terrible. The only people who sell GPUs for AI, Chat GPT, and stuff are making money, right? Everyone else is kind of screwed. Uh, well, people who build and sell houses, I think they're doing pretty well too. Uh, yeah. So the entire Intellivision thing, I think. So I get it. I get it. I totally get it. Like, maybe some people have the impression that Tommy's mansion is an actual mansion, right? That, like, it's this amazing, unbelievable house that is so crazy, because he shows it like being this. But what do you, it's not an incredible house to have 3 or 4 rooms full of garbage in them, right? Like, oh, I have some statues of this and that, and I ruined my entrance hall with a gaudy, awful looking fountain, right? Like, people who want to buy a house are going to look at that house from Tom, and it's like, well, how much is it going to cost to have someone come in here and take out all this gaudy, terrible stuff? Who wants to have is it a T-Rex? I think it's a T-Rex, right? Who wants to have a T-Rex in their garden, right? And when you take that out, are you going to sell it? Who's going to buy that? Nobody's going to buy that. You're going to have to trash that. You're going to have to pay someone that is negative value on that house. You're going to have to pay someone to go in there, take the freaking dinosaur out of there, right? Take out the freaking fountain, and take out and repaint the entire freaking house, and probably redo all the flooring. I don't know whether the electric stuff is probably okay, maybe, because that's the problem. After 20, 30 years, sometimes that's where the problems start, where you have to maybe be looking at redoing the roof, redoing some bathrooms, because there's all kinds of thing that start appearing. um, it's a 6-figure job to unfuck Tommy's house. It will be a really nice when it's done. but it's a monster job for sure. Yeah, but six figure, you just think about that, right? Six figures, when you're talking about a house that goes for millions, it's fine. You can do that. It's not, you know, uh, building that house does not cost $1 million. I know it doesn't, because it doesn't cost that much. The problem is, like, a lot of the accrued value of something like that house is just market value. It's different, right? You can buy a spot and build a house and sell it then for much, much, much more than what it costs to build a house. But most people can't really do that, can't really, like, don't have the time and are not willing to go from scratch and build an entire house, especially because a lot of people, when they're moving somewhere, they don't have that kind of time, because it takes a couple of years, not to build the house specifically, but from the point where you buy a piece of land, to get all the authorizations, to have an architect to do the projects and do everything and do all the underlying infrastructure, and then build the house on top and do all the finishes and everything. It takes a lot of time. And that's also the problem that maybe that house might have, that some people don't want to also, like, it's not like they don't have $100,000, $200,000 to do an entire job on the house and redo all the bathrooms and redo the ceiling and redo all the flooring and do the painting and do everything and take the freaking dinosaurs and fountains and trash them and take them away. It's not they don't have that money, but it's gonna take like 4 to 6 months of people working in there, depending on who's working, how many people would put in there. If you really want it fast, you could do it faster, but it takes a while. Right? It's not a couple weeks for you to be doing that stuff, and I'm pretty sure it's not a couple months either for normal people, for a normal undertaker for that kind of stuff. Yeah, but the buyers are going to look at that place and say they want 250K off, since they need that money to repairs and rebuilding. That's why I was saying before, and I believe that that house is not going to sell for 3 million. It's probably going to sell for less than that. But that is the thing. There are two. It's a two-edged sword there. On one side, right? Usually, selling a house like that, it depends on how fast you need to sell it. Because if you want the 3 million, maybe you will get the 3 million. Okay, but you'll have to wait, because it might take a couple years until someone who really wants that kind, who needs that amount of space, who needs that specific spot, who wants that house. You usually will find someone who wants that, like, I want this house. I like what it is. I like the amount of rooms it has and everything. I don't like the gaudy crap that the idiot who lived here before put it in here. But otherwise, I like the house. But you don't find it like quick, right? And people who are looking around for houses, but it doesn't have to be exactly in this gated community. It can be somewhere else. It doesn't need to have 5 rooms. It can be 4. It can be 6. They're looking at the value, and so then it's of primal importance. Like, well, it needs to be within the market, and it needs to be a good investment. Then they're going to buy it. They're going to buy something that's a good investment, right? And so then they're going to try to get the price as low as possible, and then maybe you'll have to make big concessions. But there is another side to it. With a house like that, that is money spent every month. So if you wait for those 3 years, 2 years, until someone who really wants that house finds it, you might be spending not, I don't think you would be spending hundreds of thousands of dollars, but you will be spending some. 50,000 probably, fixing stuff and keeping stuff okay, right? You have a swimming pool there. You can't just abandon a swimming pool. It's going to get ruined. You have to take a look that everything's fine. I'll have to pay someone to go there and clean it. The garden, it's going to just become a forest if you don't do anything there, and then it's going to ruin the garden. You have to redo the entire garden, so you have to keep paying someone to go there every week to clean the garden. So this is, and then on the rooftop, you might, every year pay someone to take a look that everything's clean, that everything's fine. and make sure that, and the bathrooms, when they're not being used, anything like that, sometimes you can get some leakage or something. You have to take a look that everything's fine. It's not just like that. And depending on what kind of finishes you have, like you might be needing to do external painting, and if there is wooden stuff in the house, you have to take a look that you file and paint the woods, otherwise they're going to start cracking and getting moist in them, and it's going to be all kinds of trouble. So you can't just leave a house like that, and that's a problem. So it's going to eat away at your resources anyway. So that's the reason why a lot of people, they will just, especially if they're in financial trouble, they have no choice, because sometimes they don't have the money to make the upkeep of that house, plus the place where they're actually living at, that is much smaller. So if Tommy really moved out, it might be that he was forced to move out right now, to sell right now, and he might be forced in a situation where he needs to take much less. I say might, I don't know the situation, right? Could be anything. It's probably a good buy for a rich house flipper, honestly. Yeah, that's true. As I said, because it's not gonna, I agree with you that it's probably a six-figure job to have that house like really nice. But if you go to Tommy and you say, hey, 2,500,000, I give it in your hand right now, I have the money. There you go, right? So you buy it off Tommy. If that's I don't know what the prices are there, but if you buy it for that, right? You throw through $200,000 in the house and you make it like beautiful, sparkling new, renew everything that needs, all new bathrooms everywhere, make a really nice kitchen, take all the gaudy stuff out and make everything nice, and then you sell it for 3 million again, or even more, right? And then someone who has a lot of money and doesn't want to deal with all that crap, then they can look at the house and they'll say, oh wow, this is a very, very nice house, all brand new, renewed and nice. And so they go in and they buy it, and they go live there. That's something that a lot of people do. That a lot of people live from that. But those people, they will buy it only under market value, right? Because buying at market value doesn't interest them. It's just not what they do, not what they want. Pools need to be maintained or they decay like crazy. It couldn't happen to a more deserving person. I'd love to see it totally rebuilt and sell for 4+ million the next year. Yeah, if it makes him really angry about the situation, he would complain to his friends about it, right? Oh, the guy bought it for me and then he sold it for double the price. It makes me so angry. Yes, Tommy, we heard it. We heard it. I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't I don't I don't I don't know. I don't even want to go as far as saying that the guy deserves it or not. Um, yeah, I mean, as far as karma goes, he would, right? He would deserve it, but I don't know. I don't know. The talk was mainly actually just about this idea that his house is something um, that crazy good, right? It's not that crazy good. This is not the kind, like, I am sure millionaires live in houses like Tommy do, right? There are millionaires who have like, they're filthy rich. They have, again, they're making 7 figures, right? Every year. So they could buy a house like that every 10 years, no problem. Just with what they have surplus of money, no problem. They could buy a much more expensive mansion if they wanted to. They still buy a house like that, because they don't need more. They don't want to have maids running around. Like, why would you? I'm not sure people realize that if you live in a gigantic mansion, right? Like you're walking all the way from your bedroom to the kitchen. It's on a water house, on the other side. Like, why do you have all those bedrooms? What do you want them for, right? It comes to a point where, like, why do you have this? Why would you have this? Why would you want this, right? Nobody wants this crap. Most people don't need any of this, and it doesn't make your life any better to have any of this. So why would you have it? So you don't. So even though you could buy something that's much nicer, you just buy something that's really nice at the spot where you want it to be, and then just have it be reasonable. And that's totally what Tommy's house is. It's nice, big, um, but it's just a reasonable, normal house for, again, a, I don't know, like a successful lawyer, maybe an actor, maybe again, sometimes maybe some very high profile people who are, actual millionaires and could have more. Like, but why would they have more? Like, why would you waste your time and money with that? Even though you have too much money, you don't have time, right? Just live your life. The kids can go to a nice school and live with other kids that are normal kids. You don't need, start getting into this psychopathic, create crazy, star billionaire circles where everybody's kind of psychiatrically disturbed because of all this because they don't have a normal life, right? It's like, yeah, I don't think any of that is good for anyone. So the people who can, because they're not as famous, so they don't need to be in this bubble of craziness. Yeah, they would just have a normal house. I would love to see it. Yeah, okay, so that's all. um I bought my apartment for 200K and sold it for 600-700 when I moved. Wow. Wow. I'll see what happens with my apartment when I move. I'm looking at the market today. It does look like I'm gonna make a lot of money. I bought it. It's trashed. Like, it's totally trashed, my apartment. It's actually awful. But I bought it pretty trashed already, and it's just got more trashed over the years. Uh, but even just the apartment, right? I'll have to take the decision whether I renew it and sell it all renewed and all nice, or whether if I just sell it as a trashed apartment, like just selling you the space and you have to take it all out and do it all yourself. Someone could live here without redoing everything, but I don't think anyone wants to do that for the price that this is going to cost them when we sell it. Uh, but yeah, it's crazy uh, how the market went. Um, After COVID, I bought this pre-COVID too, and but some places it's not a COVID thing. It's like if you bought it 20, 30 years ago, and then you look at it today, it's like it's just not like you can't even compare. Like in the last 30 years, 40 years, like especially some specific places in the outskirts of cities and things, of big cities. It was the outskirts, but now it's in the city, right? And so it completely changes the relationship of that place with the market, because you had this thing that was outside and all the expensive stuff was inside, but now that thing is basically inside. It's just a part of the city, and so the value just shoots up like gigantically. It's completely disproportionate. So maybe that's what happened with you. Like, you bought this apartment in this place, a town where there's nothing going on, and your neighborhood now looks completely different than it used to. That happened to some places. Other places, just the place, the price um, increases. I don't think I saw any bathrooms at Pix to have to do a ton of work. Oh, I scrolled up for some reason. Uh, you could buy it discounted and gut it and make it really nice. Yeah, man, that place has some pretty thick yearly maintenance. Yeah, a house has a disadvantage over an apartment in that sense, right? I'd like to see totally. Yeah, okay, So there were no more comments. Um, Okay. So again, I learned about the market value of places in Canada, and um, I just don't understand the entire. I will never understand. I mean, I understand some aspects of it, but why do people like do these things? It's just same thing as I was saying about buying a Ferrari. What is it to you, Leo, that people buy a Ferrari? People who do whatever they want with their money. It's like, I know you can buy a Ferrari. I don't. It doesn't really affect me, but I don't understand why you would do it. Like, what is the point of buying, like, again, if you have too much money, you could still buy another car. I don't know, buy something else, buy a rocket ship, buy a space station. I don't know, buy I don't know what you would buy, because again, money just loses its meaning after a certain amount. But and the same thing, like, okay, bought a Ferrari, good, bad for you. I mean, now you have a bad car, who cares? But also, like, in the very beginning, one of my first videos that I made about in television was just saying, like, dude, like, I heard there was a lot of people who were very angry about this project, about the television, and it's just understand that, even if they paid for it and they own the name in television, they don't own the television legacy. I still believe that 100%. Tommy Tallarico, Phil Adam, whatever, all these guys, they don't own that legacy. If you really like in television, if you for some reason think that there is something really cool about that, just keep doing everything in television. Use another name. It doesn't matter, right? If you like the controllers, if you think something should have controllers like that, just make the controllers. Make that. There's a guy who did that. He made a television controller that has uh, a kind of Nintendo NES layout, but with a place for the overlays in the middle that is easier to use in something. You can do all kinds of stuff. Like, just do it. You don't need a company who legally owns the name of something to enjoy what you enjoy, or to have a history. Like, I don't care. Nintendo today is not like it used to be to me, and I don't like the new stuff that they're putting out. It's not the kind. Although I heard that the new Mario game was very good. Maybe it's as good as Super Mario Wii U. The new Super Mario Wii U was a great game, and maybe this Wonder is just as good. I don't know. Um, but I didn't like when they released the Mario Odyssey. Why would they release that kind of game? I don't like the the Nintendo. Most of these uh, Nintendo 64 games from Nintendo, the first party 64 games, like, it's not the same as the cool, Super Nintendo stuff to me. But it's like, I'm not going to be angry at Nintendo. I'm just going to find other companies that do something that resemble that, right? And I play those games, and then that's fine, right? That's okay. I I play Monster Hunter, not because it's Monster Hunter. There are other Monster Hunter clones out there. I would play any of them that's better than Monster Hunter. But, well, Monster Hunter is still really good, so I play Monster Hunter. Now, it's like other games. Uh, I think Diablo is still better. Like, I think Diablo 2 is the best game on that genre. Maybe 4 is better. But I don't play Diablo 4 or 2 because that BattleNet, all that crap. If they sell me the game for real, and I can just install it on my PC and leave me alone without all this DRM bullshit that they do, then I'll buy it. But otherwise, I play other Diablo-like games. When I play a Diablo-like game, I don't play that game, because if it, I don't care if it's Diablo or another name. I forgot the name of the one that I play, but yeah, Diablo 2. It's quite amazing. It's still that other and the legacy is still that other company. That's people that really own the Intellivision legacy. Yeah, the blue. I agree. But even the blue Sky Rangers, I mean, if they start screwing up, who cares? Like, other people in the community can do whatever they want, right? People are free to do. Still, we are free to do whatever we want, and we are not free to use that money, that name illegally. but you can use all the rest, and that's what is important. Uh, yeah, I know that remaster game was really nice, and I wanted to play it actually. But it's like, oh, you have to install Battle.net and make an account and this and that. And I was like, dude, no, just no. I can't just sell your game. I'm just not gonna buy this. I'm gonna play something else. This is it's too much. It's too intrusive. I'm not willing to do that. Maybe now I'm not sure whether it's on Steam. Sometimes after a while, after many years, they start releasing this stuff in other places. So maybe one day, or I just get the Diablo 2 game. I'm not sure how well it runs in modern hardware. I know it looks pretty crappy to today's standards, and it's all 2D, so it's all low resolution. So it does not, yeah, it didn't age well graphically, even though the gameplay. Um, but the problem is a lot of stuff that's coming to Steam. You have to be really careful, and that's also really, really annoying. It's like Ubisoft does that. You can buy the game on Steam, but you still need a Ubisoft account to play it. Like to you're forced to have the accounts and do every. So if I'm gonna have a Blizzard account anyway, I understand I might need to have a Blizzard account if I want to play online and do this and that. But Diablo 2 is an offline game. Even Diablo 3 is a game you could totally, and I played it offline. You can totally play it offline. So if I want to play it offline, just let me play it offline. So yeah, to play my Steam, that's ridiculous, right? Do you know whether Diablo 2 remaster on Steam, I can just install it from my Steam and not do any Battle.net stuff? Because I don't want to do any Battle.net stuff. I might take a look at that. I might take a look at that. Well, not Diablo 2. Maybe Diablo 2 remaster is just not there. But if 4 is not as good as 2, is Diablo 4 as good as 2? You're saying not, right? You're saying remaster is the best. Ah, that's terrible that they didn't. Yeah, I'll take a look. No, it's not worth my time to play a video game, to be going through this stuff and making new accounts and, you know, remembering passwords or whatever, or having this stuff in different, but now, man, like it is so disrespectful of these companies. Like just D4 sucks. A lot of them liked it. The player base is already dead. Wow. Well, it's really hard to reproduce Diablo 2, because Diablo 2, at least in my opinion, I'm not sure what other people think, but Diablo 2 is the only game I've ever played of that genre that really nailed actually good gameplay. You know, like Diablo 2 is a game that even if it did not have gear, if it did not have leveling up, and it was just balanced, you know, for the enemies always being of a certain difficulty, you know, just readjust all the health of everything and give the player like just points as you go through the levels to get more magic or everything, it would still be a great game, because just the gameplay itself, just the gameplay without the grind, it holds up, right? As that point and click action thing, and you know, running away from the enemies or engaging the enemies and knowing when to use your skills. It's not a game about clicking on monsters until they die to get better gear, which most of these Diablo clones are. And Diablo even had some strategy, the original game, but not as much, right? A lot of it was DPS and defense and potions and doing that. Uh, and some stuff was, yeah, okay, you know, reasonably skill based, but not. But Diablo, no, like Diablo 2, sorry, Diablo 2, like is a skill game. Like you really need to be like, even with the, because usually the warrior is just this tank character, just stands in front of everybody, just hitting them and taking the damage. Like not in Diablo 2. In Diablo 2, you need to do a build and really know what you're doing and really use the skills for mana and health regeneration, for for health stealing and mana stealing and all that kind of stuff, and really know when to go in, because you can't just tank the enemies just like that. You're gonna die. Like, you can't just stand there pressing the attack button and hope to survive. It's just it's not. Yeah, Diablo 2 is one of the games that I played the most in my life. That and Oblivion Secret of Mana, Gran Turismo, Tony Hawk Pro Skater, but probably the two that I spent the actual most amount of time. It's hard to say, but it's probably Diablo 2 and Oblivion. Those are probably the two games that I spent the most time with. Because, as you say, it not 10,000, but I have no idea. But I played that game for years. It's not a game that you play like you play it through with one character, and then you get the same character and you play it through again with a different build. And then the expansion came out, and I got the expansion, and then it's a different game altogether. So you play a couple times with just one character doing two different builds, and then you get a new character, and then you go through with that character. And even the same character, you can just keep playing and playing and playing to get better gear at the higher levels. Like, it's insane the amount of times you can play that game. It's ridiculous. Yeah. And again, because it's deep, the combat is good. It's I played Diablo 3 and I was horrified at how garbage, at least the beginning. I don't know how the end game was because I never got to the end game, but it was garbage. Everything about it was way worse than Diablo 2. Everything. The visuals were worse, the audio was worse, the combat is absolute trash. The skills were it was garbage. I hated that game. I didn't hate the game. It's a competent Diablo clone, but it doesn't come even close to being as good as Diablo 2. Like, it's no. But my God, I was so disappointed in that game. Like, it's so boring. It was so boring. But again, not just yeah. It was not just the combat was dumped down. Like, everything else was bad too. The story was bad. The story was never good in Diablo, in my opinion, but I mean, it was okay. Like, I don't know, Diablo 3 really felt like a cheap, crappy clone, not even made by Blizzard. Like, some company was like, "Oh yeah, let's clone Diablo," and then they made that thing, and it's like, well, sorry, you guys didn't capture the essence of Diablo 2 or Diablo 1, because Diablo 1 was not as good in the gameplay. I've had this conversation before on YouTube. Diablo 1 didn't have the same good gameplay, but Diablo 1 had an atmosphere that was amazing. Like, that game scared the shit out of me. Diablo 2 was not nearly as scary, except for the fact that you were scared of dying because it was so easy to die in Diablo 2. Because if you just stopped paying attention at the higher levels for a couple seconds, you'd be gone, right? And so that was very tense. But if you kept up, if you kept playing well, you would survive totally. Because again, it was just not a DPS thing. It was not just a gear thing. You needed to have the good gear, but skill would play a major role in it. But just the atmosphere of Diablo 1 is unbeaten, even by Diablo 2, in my opinion. And Diablo 3 had no atmosphere, no story, no gameplay. The skills and the equipment was trash. The combat was boring. So there was no reason to play the game. It's a mindless clicking thing. Yeah. Yeah. It was bad, wasn't it? Took 2 weeks off of work to play Diablo 3 at launch. Oh, wow. That's brutal, man. I'm sorry about that. Wow. Wow, imagine that taking a like, yeah. No, I understand because we were really excited, but I don't do that. Even back in the day, I didn't do that. I never bought a game on release. I always waited. I always sat back and took a look, like, is it really good? And I took a look at what people say and don't say about the games. And I never really fell for Diablo 3. When I bought it, it was cheaper a while after, and then I played it, and I was like, even knowing that Diablo 3, and even after all the patching and everything, because these games, even Diablo 2 improved a lot with the patches and everything, you know. But even after a lot of patching and a lot of improvements or everything, it's just too boring and bland and just bad. Like, it's not bad. It's, again, it's just too boring, too boring. Like, that, I felt no urge to keep playing that game because it was so generic and boring that I couldn't, yeah, I couldn't get into it at all. But I was disappointed, even having low expectations. You know what I mean? Even after having seen the discussions and knowing that the game was not as good as Diablo 2, I thought, well, and a lot of people play it, a lot of people like it. It's probably kind of okay, you know. But in my in my memory, the combat in Diablo 3 is actually worse than in Diablo 1. You know, maybe it's not. Maybe the combat in Diablo 3 is better because Diablo 1 had pretty, I mean, it was not great combat. But again, it had that atmosphere, and it was the first game in the series. So when you're first time exploring that world, and it's the first time you're seeing, and the story was, I mean, the story was pretty good. It was told well. Again, it had atmosphere. Oh, really? Diablo? Wow, that is crazy. But people said Diablo 4 was good. It was a coming back to Diablo 2 times because 2 was the best. Did- Seriously? Is it that bad? Wow. Well, that's, yeah, then it's absolute trash. Absolute trash. That is unbelievable. Well, okay. I stayed way longer than I wanted to. Didn't even let Rabbit Dude come in because I didn't want to stay long. Sorry about that, Rabbit Dude. But I'll leave now, especially because we're already talking about something that has nothing to do with Intellivision, which is fine because nothing has anything to do with Intellivision, right? I really don't want to go around anymore having fights with people. This was never what my channel used to be about. But I just watched these videos from different people, pro Amico, or they consider themselves neutral or anything. And it's just I just look at it, and I cannot understand what happens to a human being that when they are discussing a project that was crowdfunded, that they can set aside the fact that they raised $11 million from investors and they didn't make the console. They said they were going to make the console. They didn't say they were not going to make the console. They said they were going to make the console and it was done and ready. And even if it wasn't, that was still money enough to make the console and release it. And it is obviously their moral obligation to have taken that money and done the absolute best they could to release whatever they could with that money, right? Because that's why they got the money in the first place. And they absolutely didn't do that. They pocketed that money. They funneled that money through their own salaries and through paying back uh, their their loans to the company, and they got the money and they disappeared. That's what well, they didn't disappear. They're still around saying that they're going to release some controllers. And they're putting these games on Steam for them to sell less than 1,000 copies, or putting them on Android, sorry, for selling less than 1,000 copies. So, selling less than 1,000 copies is not something that puts you even on the map on being a game developer, right? It's not, and so that is what gets to me, and then I feel like talking about it because of that. But besides that, I don't even know what to discuss. I don't see anything that there is to discuss. What is there to discuss? There's nothing to discuss. about it. So I don't even have too much to argue. Not anymore. Back in the day, I was presenting my arguments, which again, these people completely ignored. I don't know how, but they did. So yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna get into those conversations again. You two, eating paste, have a good one. Rabbit dude, have a good one, and whoever else watches the video, take care of yourselves. You know, yeah, just take care of yourselves, take care of your loved ones, and be nice to people. It makes the world a nicer place for most people, and I think it's worth it. Okay, and yeah, I'll see you guys around. I'm kind of back, but I'm not gonna be making like daily stuff. I don't want to use the time for that, but I can do something like this now and then. I'm probably talking about other stuff because as you can see, like I like talking about games. It's cool talking about games. I wouldn't spend all my day, all every day talking about games, but it's nice. I think many of their games will sell less. Yeah, I'm being very generous with under 1,000, definitely. Uh, you know, I've always been generous to the Intellivision Amico, although people called me a hater. I was always putting them under the best case scenario light. It's just the problem that for them, the best case scenario light, even if you say, well, they sold less than 1,000, it's still absolute trash, right? Even if you give them the absolute benefit of the doubt, it's still, even if they didn't like steal the money straight up, like, well, they didn't release the console. What happened with that money? At best, this is it can't even be. It's not even possible to mismanage a company that has $10 million to manufacture a console into not even manufacturing. They would have, if they mismanaged it, they would have manufactured it and failed miserably. But they had enough to manufacture, and they didn't anyway. So there's something else going on there, even with the benefit of the doubt. I'll leave you with that. Goodbye.